Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Ask GHCC. Today we have two questions that are really rather related. The first one is, should Christians support the death penalty? And the idea was that we thought everyone was redeemable. And the second one was that there are so many wars in the Old Testament and so many wars today. Why does God not view killing in a war as murder? I want to address these subjects like this. First of all, on the war issue, war is a sometimes necessary response to evil. Because of sin in the world, evil is also present. Sometimes evil is resident within people, and if enough people are evil, it can be resident within a nation. God uses war to confront evil, which is what he was doing many times in the Old Testament. Also in the Old Testament, God used war to bring judgment against evil or nations that were not following after him. In World War II, for example, Nazism and the whole movement of Hitler across Europe was a great evil. Not only was it destroying millions of Jews, but it was threatening to take over the entire Western world, France, Poland, and then making their way towards England and eventually a threat to the U.S. It's the same when Japan attacked the U.S. at Pearl Harbor. It was an expression of evil seeking to take over the world for evil purposes. So God raised up those to fight a war and to send them out to quell and stop the evil, which by his grace is exactly what happens. So when someone shoots or kills someone else in an act of war, it is not considered murder. Here's a classic example. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, right after the death of Saul, there was war between the house of David in the southern kingdom and the house of Saul. There were three people involved in those chapters who killed each other off. One was legitimate, the other were not. One of the persons was Abner. He was the head of Saul's army. The other was Asahel, who was the brother of Joab, who was the head of David's army. When the war was breaking out between David's forces and Saul's forces, Asahel chased after Abner, the head of Saul's forces, and Abner tried to get him to stop. He even said to him, "How will I ever face your brother if I have to kill you?" But in an act of war, Asahel wouldn't stop, and so Abner had to kill him. And it was called a clean killing. God did not judge that, nor call it murder. But later on, Joab, who was very offended over Abner's killing of his brother Asahel, he lured Abner into a private meeting. After Abner had come over and made peace treaty with David, he lured Abner into a private meeting where he killed him. And God called it murder because it was not during an act of war. It's the same idea when we talk about Christians supporting the death penalty. The death penalty is in place, God said, to deter evil and to eliminate evil from amongst the righteous. So when a person has committed capital crimes, the taking of another life, for example, the death penalty was imposed by God to remove that evil. But it has nothing to do with the person's being redemptive. There are a number of people who have found Christ on death row even before they were executed. And they understood that just because they were forgiven, they still had a penalty to pay to society. So if we follow the biblical patterns for these things, we can understand that the death penalty is supportable by Christians, and killing someone in a righteous act of war that's ordained by God to quell evil is not an act of murder.